The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has asked the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal to dismiss a petition filed by the Labour Party and its presidential candidate Peter Obi challenging the victory of Bola Tinubu, candidate of the All Progressives Congress, as the president-elect. In the petition led by Levi Ozoku, lead counsel to Labour Party and its presidential candidate, the petitioners asserted that the election was marred by rigging and manipulations while violating its own regulations.
Well, in the response filed on Monday night, INEC, through its lawyer Abubakar Mahmood, said the reliefs sought by Obi and his party are not grantable. The commission prayed the court to either dismiss or strike out the petition for being grossly incompetent, abusive, vague, amongst many other descriptions. And, well, in Lagos, People's Democratic Party, PDP, Lagos State, and its governorship candidate, Dr. Abdulaziz Adediran, that's otherwise known as Jandor, also submitted a petition before the Governorship Election Petition Tribunal of Lagos State. And the party and Adediran are calling for the disqualification of All Progressives Congress and the Labour Party candidates in the election for non-compliance with the Electoral Act 2022. This is amidst continuous developments in the tribunal process. So as we speak this morning, we do have petitions flying here and there, and a countdown to the swearing-in of President-elect. Well, what will the court do? So like many have said, the court will be in session. But joining us now to discuss this is Anthony Ehilebo. He is a legal practitioner and a member of PDP Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you for joining us, Anthony, this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, first off, thank you. First off, let's go straight into it. What's your take on INEC coming out to say that some of the petitions that have actually have been brought forward should be stricken out, should be taken out, should not be attended to by the court? And secondly, what is your take on the countdown towards the inauguration, the big inauguration?
Well, let me start from your first question. INEC, as it is today, if you take a public perception reading, if you want to feel the temperature of most Nigerians, I don't know why it deceives itself that it performed. INEC disappointed Nigerians on a level that is unprecedented. The backflips, the reverse conversations, the denial of one's own commentary as evidenced by the press releases, the Twitter feed of INEC, verified Twitter feed of INEC, which stated certain things were mandatory, and how it has taken them so long to come up with this response that they have. It's quite befuddling. Just before I came on your show, another radio host was asking me that the INEC regulation allows for it to use manual collation, which is the main context here. But I mean, we'll talk about the response of the APC to Labour Party's petition. But the fulcrum of most of the petitions we've seen as regards the presidential election, because that is where INEC failed to perform its obligatory duties as prescribed, and it's also stated in its own press statements that it is mandatory by the Electoral Act. Now, one thing most people must realize is that the Electoral Act is not a child of happenstance. It's been a long time coming. In fact, since 2007, when Justice Uwais was commissioned to look into the electoral reform processes after the then president-elect, President Umar Yar'Adua, accepted that the elections that brought him in were grossly flawed. And being an upright man, he said he promised to fix the system. And that's when he inaugurated the Uwais Commission. Unfortunately, before he could even start the implementation, he passed on. But somehow, civil society, subsequent governments have tried to toe that line of giving Nigerians free, fair, and credible elections. And that was climaxed in 2022. But there's a backstory to this. I always say this, for immortality and for us to keep the record straight. One man, Ario Dare Atoye, he's late now. He passed on in October, unfortunately. His last advocacy was when he realized that some members of the APC had surreptitiously removed electronic transmission of results from the Electoral Act that was going to be passed by the president. He raised that alarm, started protesting at the National Assembly before Nigerians caught on to what sinister plans these guys had. And then we had all sorts of pressure from the NBA, from the Nigerian Guild of Editors. I remember it was such a huge campaign because we were all part of that campaign. And we were careful with the wording of the Electoral Act that was going to be passed by, and indeed was passed by Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari. Thanks to him, which we felt he would try to implement. And we had seen the practice of going to the IREV to check results. Now, one thing everybody must be clear on is that the IREV and electronic transmission of results was the game changer everybody believed in for 2023. Incidentally, just a few days before the elections, I was out of the country and I was flying back in. I came back on a fully booked British Airways flight. Everybody on that flight, 90% of the people on that flight were residents of the UK coming back to Nigeria to cast their vote. Why? Because we had been able to not only influence the sort of wordings we wanted into the Electoral Act, we had gotten the president to sign the Electoral Act. Because, you know, these things have a history. The intensity to have electronic transmission came about after the Kogi and Bayelsa by-elections. Kogi particularly had turned violent. And where did we see this violence occurring? At collation centers, when ballot boxes were in transit to either the ward collation, the local government collation, in the case of a state election and the state collation office, where thugs would ambush these results and cut them away. And then you'll find that at collation, there'll be this intentionally, knowing where their strong points or their weak points were, they were manipulating the outcomes of these results. So, as a preventive measure, most of us that were part of the agitations for the Electoral Act 2022 amendments were very careful in the words that we put in the Electoral Act so that we could compel even the umpire. There's a story I'm very careful about telling Nigerians. This was in 2019. The same Mahmoud Yakubu gathered us young people, about 15 or 12 of us, in a room, said he was having a Chatham House meeting, and promised us free, fair, and credible elections, and that INEC had a server which would be used for the 2019 election. Ario was in that room too. And that is why, in anticipating what Mahmoud Yakubu would do, we made sure these changes were put in the Electoral Act and fought. This was a very serious, in fact, the APC had removed it in the Senate. Removed electronic transmission. There was a huge argument. In fact, they had to get data from NCC to back the claim that the IREV, BVAS, would work even in remote areas. There was even the argument that if you could not upload, you could upload offline. And as soon as that machine or device was anywhere it could get service, it would transmit those results. Lo and behold, on election day, I was in Igwebe. I was in my polling unit. We uploaded we didn't have House of Rep because there was a little issue. So we only had the Senate and the presidency. We finished the elections, they could upload the Senate. Then they now started having problems uploading the presidential election, which meant somebody had intentionally sabotaged the upload of presidential elections results. Now, let me say something. Fast forward to the 18th, in my same local government, the IREV and everything was working. And we already knew from our reports from the field what the election results were. But there was a ward called Ward 10, EPON. Those boys blocked the election materials and election officers from coming out of their ward. Unfortunately for them, we just sat down at the collation center, went on IREV, And we saw all the results they were trying to stop from coming to the collation center and collected with those results. And that was how the result was declared. So you see the ill electronic transmission sought to cure. Now, when INEC is coming out to tell us fictitious stories, to tell us that after dampening our hope, because 5 days after the election, they had not yet uploaded results to the IREF. And even the results that they uploaded were all mutilated results. We have about 50,000 results that were mutilated beyond, and we have the original copies of these results.
Right.
And they do not carry with what INEC is uploading to the IREF. Some, in fact, you will find out that more than 10 different local governments had their results uploaded from one table. You could tell that this table is the same table, the results from probably Nkana local government, the result from another local government in the same state. Whereas the law is specific that immediately the elections are done from the polling units, the election officer must upload that result. And at collation, if there was a dispute, the collation officer must stop that collation and refer back to the IREF.
Right. Mr. Ahilebo, you've highlighted a number of the complaints that a number of Nigerians have also, spotted and talked about. We've also seen that there have been petitions that have been made by your party, by the APC, by the Labour Party, I beg your pardon. Now, what we're hearing is that the INEC is challenging the jurisdiction, or the APC is challenging the jurisdiction of the tribunal to be able to hear some of the pre-election matters that have been raised in the petition as presented by the Labour Party. How do you foresee all of this going down, especially as we're counting down to May 29th?
Well, as a practicing lawyer, let's not just delve into the substance of the case because it is now sub judice. But we can talk about the surface area of it, or surface matters. Yes, I know that there were pre-election matters that were taken to court, and the court declined to even look into the matter, stating that these pre-election matters did not, because the Electoral Act also wanted to keep busybodies out of election petitions, which in a way it's a good thing. But once they have gone to a presidential election petition tribunal, all matters are welcome, even pre-election matters. So it allows for that leeway. But, like I said, this is sub judice. We'll have to wait and see how the court interprets these things. We're also not aware that we must tell the courts that they must be careful of their pronouncements, because their pronouncement becomes law, and their pronouncement is kept in history. And for time immemorial, people will always refer to any judgment, whether it was good or bad. I remember in my years in law school, or in my years training as a lawyer, we always referred to great and eminent jurists like Lord Denning, G.S.C. Okuta as he then was, the great names, because of the sort of judgments that they gave. Don't forget there was a time Nigeria was held at the muzzle of an AK-47 by the military. But we had fearless judges that gave judgments against the military. Just, you remember them, the litany of justices there. But what we have today is a lack of faith, if I would put it that way.
All right.
They go to court stadium, but we know that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man, and more or less than often comes to the rescue of the common man, and I believe will come to rescue and aid of the Nigerian voter.
Okay, Mr. Ahilebo, a lot of comments have also gone out concerning INEC and its statements made earlier on, whether INEC followed its own laws or INEC digressed, if we look at it from that perspective. Let's take a look at one of it. One of the letters that was indeed put out during before the elections, where the INEC did make mention of this very clearly. I'd like us to look at the third paragraph. It says IREF is one of the innovations introduced by the Commission to ensure integrity and credibility of election results in Nigeria. It is therefore inconceivable that the Commission will turn around and undermine its own innovations. Let's take a look at the second paragraph. I beg your pardon once again. It says a claim that was made earlier that the machine, the IREF, will not be used. It says the Commission has repeatedly reassured Nigerians that it will transmit results directly from the polling units, as we witnessed in Ekiti and Osun State governorship elections and 103 more constituencies where off-circle governorship, FCT area council elections and by-elections were held since August 2020. The results can still be viewed on the portal. In other words, the results of these states mentioned here can still be viewed on the portal. One, as we speak, some of the results of the just concluded elections have not been posted on the portal. INEC has said that they do not have to depend on those results posted on the portal before they can announce the winner. Secondly, INEC also put out a tweet, which we're also going to see there on the screen. And that tweet was also a follow-up and a clarification of what it had said. On that tweet, I hope we have that tweet there. Yes, it says, the Commission will upload polling unit level results and citizens will have access to those results in real time, which is underlined there, as we upload. This innovation was introduced by the Commission and the Commission cannot turn around to undermine itself. This technology has come to stay. Do you think INEC has lived up to these statements it made clear and bare to Nigerians?
There's a song, there's a popular pop artist called Falz. The father is Leonard Essien, and he's very in-depth in terms of his lyrics, and he did a song called Mr. Yakubu. I wish you guys had the time to go through that. He literally put out the lyrics or put out the hook and allowed Nigerians freestyle on it. I've seen over 200 videos of Nigerians and their versions of what they think of the INEC chairman and INEC itself. One thing that we must be careful of in life, and this goes to even me speaking, that our words will always be used to judge us. Our words would always come back to haunt us. And like I said, in 2019, I heard the words of Mahmoud Yakubu. So as 2023, I'm not surprised that this is the kind of man he is. There are states that we are aware, particularly a state like Rivers State. We are aware that people were allowed to do what they wanted to do in Rivers because perhaps he had a prior relationship with the current governor of Rivers State. Yes, when he was executive secretary at TEDFON, the current governor of Rivers State was his boss as Minister of State for Education. We know this history. We understand the dynamics of the things that have happened. Go and see the results in Rivers State, how mutilated they are. During the collation of results, the agent, Dino Melaye, say whatever you will about him. But his assertion that the INEC chairman must stop the collation and go back to the IREF was right. Because we put these things in the Electoral Act. These are not phantom words. These are not, we knew who we were dealing with. We anticipated these things. And we do what we do, not because I'm a member of a political party, because I see the further down the road consequences of this action. This man allegedly may have collected money and feels that he can go and live his life of luxury. But the pain and suffering of Nigerians will continue as long as we do not have credible elections, as long as people who we did not want in positions of leadership can force their way into these offices and begin to act in a manner that human beings or people will not be able to understand because they were not put there by these said people. They believe that they grabbed it stole it, and ran with it, regardless, and told us Nigerians to go to court. Look, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. The consequences we will always see. In 2015, Nigerians were told the consequences of electing a certain set of people into government. 8 years down the line, they came in on security, economy, and corruption. I think on all fronts, Nigerians have seen the consequences. And I think Nigerians decided in 2023 to turn around their fortunes. And indeed, they had the right to do this because enabling laws had guaranteed them these rights would be totally enforced.
Okay.
We saw this happen in Edo State. You see, I need to go back to by-elections. Having participated in these by-elections, I can tell you the impact of IREM. It solved, look at Edo elections. We didn't have violence. Why? Because the IREM worked. So ballot box snatchers knew that no matter where they went to snatch the ballot box, or no matter how they tried to attack the collation center, the results were already, everybody knew what the results were. By 12 a.m. on the 20th of September 2020 in Edo State, I participated in that election. Immediately I finished voting, I went to Benin to the collations to our situation room. We had the results. Same thing for Ondo. In fact, by 6 o'clock in Ondo, we already knew we lost that election. And some of us started in Ondo.
Mr. Anthony Ahilebo, there's so many angles to explain this conversation, but unfortunately we've run out of time. But we thank you so much for joining us. We, of course, will be following this conversation step by step. There are areas that we would love to talk about that we cannot talk about because matters are still pending in court. But as they are sorted, we'd certainly love to have you back to expatiate on them further. Thank you for your time.
No worries, anytime.